The air in the arena was heavy with the scent of metal and fear. The ceiling above glowed with cold blue light, and thousands of alien eyes stared down at the lone human standing in the center of the sand-covered floor. The alien commander paced at the edge of the pit, his long black cloak dragging behind him, a cruel smile carving its way across his sharp face. His voice echoed through the massive chamber, smooth and full of venom. "Why aren't you trembling, human? One word from me, and my pet will devour you." The crowd laughed, a low hiss of amusement that rippled through the stands like a living thing. In the shadows of the opposite gate, something growled, a sound so deep it seemed to rattle the walls. The commander raised his arms slowly, savoring the moment, waiting for fear. But the human didn't move. His boots were steady in the sand, his eyes fixed on the gate, his breathing slow and measured. To the aliens, he looked like prey too proud to know it was already dead. To the human, it was just another battlefield. The gates groaned open with a scream of metal, and the beast emerged, towering over 3 meters tall, its armored hide glistening under the harsh lights. Its jaw was split into 4 curved mandibles dripping with black saliva, its crimson eyes glowing like coals. It moved with the heavy grace of something that had killed many times before. The crowd chanted, pounding their claws and fists against the walls. They called the creature a scarf, a predator bred for war and blood sport, feared even among the Galactic Council soldiers. It had crushed armored troops. It had shredded prisoners. No one survived a scarf. But the human didn't step back. He raised his head slightly, his lips curving in the faintest smile, not of arrogance but of something far more dangerous, calculated confidence. The commander barked an order in his native tongue, and the beast roared, shaking the stands as it charged forward like a rolling avalanche of claws and teeth. The human's heartbeat didn't spike. He didn't run. He waited until the last second, his eyes tracking every movement like a hunter watching prey instead of the other way around. Then, with terrifying precision, he sidestepped, dropping low as the beast lunged, its claws slashing through air. The human struck once, fast and hard, his combat blade sliding under the creature's armor, just behind its front limb. Blood hissed against the sand. The crowd went silent. It was the kind of silence that only happens when something impossible happens in front of you. The commander's grin faltered. "No," he muttered under his breath. The human's movements were clean, efficient, nothing wasted. He didn't fight the scarf like prey. He dismantled it like a soldier who had spent years studying how to kill worse things in the dark of space. The beast circled, slower now, blood dripping from its limb. The human rotated his wrist, the blade gleaming under the lights. Around the arena, some of the younger aliens leaned forward, confused. They'd been raised on stories of humans being weak, fearful, backward creatures from a death world barely worth naming. But this man didn't match the stories. The commander shouted again, and the beast lunged, faster this time. The human rolled forward under its attack, kicked off the sand, and leapt onto its back in a single motion. His hand found the nerve cluster behind its armored plates, a weakness the alien who owned it had probably never considered a human could exploit. He slammed his blade down, twisting hard, and the beast let out a deafening shriek that shook the arena. It thrashed violently, trying to throw him off, but the soldier clung to it with the iron grip of someone who had grown up wrestling death itself on a world that didn't forgive weakness. He whispered through gritted teeth, "I've fought worse than you on my way to school." The scarf fell to its knees with a crash, its claws tearing trenches into the sand, its breathing ragged and uneven. The commander took an involuntary step back, the laughter of the crowd fading into stunned whispers. The human jumped down from its back, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud, his blade dripping with alien blood. He didn't roar. He didn't gloat. He simply walked toward the alien commander, his gaze steady, every step like a hammer against their pride. The beast behind him let out one last weak growl before collapsing in a heap. The commander tried to recover his voice, but the edges of his arrogance had started to crack. You don't understand what you've done," he hissed. "That was one of the Council's most dangerous war beasts. You should be on your knees, begging for mercy." But the human just tilted his head slightly, like he was trying to figure out how a creature so loud could know so little. "No," he said quietly, "you should be." The guards around the arena raised their weapons. The commander barked orders, trying to regain control of the moment. But the human didn't seem outnumbered. He seemed like a man who was exactly where he wanted to be. "You think this is about a beast?" the human said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "You brought me here to be your show, your entertainment. You wanted to prove to the galaxy that humans are weak. You forgot one thing." He slowly turned to face the entire arena, his voice growing colder. "We're from a death world. We don't fear predators. We become them." That sentence spread through the stands like a spark through dry wood. Whispers. Shifts in posture. Even the guards hesitated for a second, their training colliding with a growing sense of unease. The alien commander snarled and raised his hand to fire the signal for execution. But before his claw could fall, the arena's outer wall shook violently, a deep rumble spreading through the ground. The commander froze. The crowd fell silent again. Overhead, the faint, unmistakable growl of Terran engines filled the air. Above the arena, the sky split open with fire. Black ships descended through the atmosphere like falling blades, their hulls marked with the insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet. Dropships broke formation, streaking through the clouds like arrows. The alien commander turned pale as he realized what he had brought down on himself. "You didn't come alone," he whispered. The human allowed himself the faintest grin. "No," he said, "we don't leave our own behind." The arena erupted in chaos as Terran dropships slammed into the ground outside. The gates burst open, smoke and dust swirling as Terran soldiers in black armor poured in, their boots moving in perfect rhythm, their rifles gleaming under the lights. No shouts, no panic, just war. The alien commander backed away, screaming orders, but his soldiers were already breaking ranks, stumbling over themselves as the Terran unit advanced like a wall of iron. The human soldier stepped aside as the vanguard moved past him, their visors reflecting the fire overhead. The alien commander screamed, "Stop them! They're just humans." But the sound of gunfire answered him, clean and precise. The Terran fleet didn't need to make speeches. It was the speech. The human turned one last time to the fallen scarf, watching as its dimming eyes reflected the flames above. It had been trained to kill. So had he. But the difference between them was simple. The beast obeyed. He adapted. The commander fell to his knees, his mask cracked, the taste of his own fear choking him as the Terran soldiers surrounded him. The human crouched in front of him, calm as a blade on ice. "You thought fear made you powerful," he said softly, "but you've never faced fear like ours." The commander's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Outside, the Terran warships lit the sky like a second sun. Across the galaxy, news of the arena spread like wildfire. The Council would hear of this. The galaxy would whisper. And somewhere in those whispers, a new truth would take root, that humanity was not a prey species. They were the storm waiting in the dark. As the fleet carried him back into the void, the human stood at the dropship's hatch, the alien world shrinking beneath his boots. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The message had already been carved in fire and blood. Humanity doesn't kneel. Humanity doesn't run. Humanity fights. If you enjoyed this HFY sci-fi story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful human stories, because this is just the beginning. Humanity always rises. HFY forever. The screams of the crowd still echoed through the night air like a living storm as the Terran soldier was pulled from the arena floor, but not by guards or chains. He walked out on his own 2 feet, his boots heavy against the cracked metal of the corridor, blood still streaking down the blade at his side. Behind him, the corpse of the alien beast lay broken in the sand, a creature bred to terrify, now just a reminder of how fragile fear becomes when it faces something real. The alien commander staggered away from the viewing box above, his hands shaking even though he tried to keep them hidden under his flowing black cloak. His pet had never lost before. No prisoner had ever left the arena breathing. This human should have died screaming for mercy. Instead, He had turned the galaxy's most feared predator into a carcass in less than 5 minutes. The corridors outside the arena were lit by red emergency lights, their glow reflecting off the polished bone-white walls of the alien citadel. The air smelled of metal and burnt ozone, a byproduct of the Terran dropships cutting through the atmosphere minutes earlier. The alien guards moved nervously, their steps uneven, their claws twitching at the triggers of their weapons. They weren't afraid of the humans standing in the hallway. They were afraid of the sky outside. Because when Terrans arrived, they never came alone. The soldier wiped the blade against his arm guard slowly, his expression calm, detached, almost cold. He had been in too many wars to celebrate a single victory. He understood exactly what was happening now. This wasn't just a fight. It was the opening move in something much bigger. The commander's voice echoed down the corridor, sharp and shrill. You don't understand what you've done. This is a council world. You think your people can touch us here. The soldier finally looked at him, his gaze quiet, flat, the kind of look that made soldiers twice the commander's size take a step back. Touch you? The soldier said softly. We're not here to touch. We're here to erase. The commander flinched as another tremor ran through the floor, the sound of Terran engines reverberating across the city. High above, black warships broke through the clouds, their hulls glowing faint blue in the atmosphere. No decorative banners, no grand speeches, just silent precision. Terrans never needed to announce themselves. The entire city already knew what was happening. Panic spread like fire through the alien population. Sirens screamed across the spires. Security forces scrambled, trying to form a defense line. But it was too late for that. The soldier knew it. The commander knew it. The crowd that had once cheered his death was now running for their lives. Down the corridor, 2 Terran Marines in matte black armor rounded the corner, their helmets reflecting the red lights like mirrors. They didn't need to shout or posture. They simply moved forward, rifles raised, every step perfectly synchronized. The commander froze when he saw them. The human soldier stepped aside as they passed him without a word. This was standard Terran doctrine. You hit fast. You hit clean. You leave nothing standing. The commander stumbled backward, his mouth opening and closing like a trapped animal. They won't let this stand, he spat, voice shaking. The Galactic Council will burn your world for this. The soldier walked closer, slow, measured, until the commander could see the cold light in his eyes. You've been trying to burn our world since the first day we reached your stars, he said quietly. You just keep forgetting, we don't burn. We fight back. That single sentence cracked the commander more than any weapon. Because it wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It was a truth the galaxy had spent too long trying to ignore. Outside, the first Terran strike pods landed across the city with the soft thud of precision landings, the kind that carried an army without a sound. There were no messy invasions when humans fought. No drawn-out sieges. No warning broadcasts. The world shifted from control to chaos in a heartbeat. Alien forces tried to form perimeter lines, but by the time their comms lit up with orders, Terran drones were already in the sky, black like swarms of metallic birds, cutting through resistance with surgical strikes. This wasn't war to Terrans. It was extermination of an idea, that humanity could ever be chained. The commander was shoved forward by one of his own guards in the confusion, stumbling toward the soldier, who didn't even lift his weapon. Why? The commander hissed, almost in disbelief. Why do you fight like this? Why don't you fear anything? The soldier leaned in slightly, his voice dropping low enough that only the commander could hear it. Because, he whispered, we were born on a world that tried to kill us every day. Your monster was nothing compared to a Terran storm. As they moved through the collapsing citadel, the alien girl, one of the commander's slaves, once kept as a prize, appeared in the hallway, frozen by the sight of the soldier walking through the chaos like a man walking home. She had watched the fight from the lower chambers, expecting to watch another human die, but what she saw had shattered everything she believed. Her people whispered that humans were fragile. But this man had looked at the galaxy's terror and didn't even blink. She stepped back, but he didn't even spare her a glance. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here to end something. The hallway opened into the central plaza of the citadel. Smoke billowed from broken towers. The sky glowed orange from fires started by Terran railgun bursts. Dropships touched down with frightening grace, soldiers pouring out in rows, each movement drilled to perfection. The commander tried to shout orders, but no one was listening anymore. His men were running. His city was falling apart around him. And the Terrans moved like shadows, silent and unstoppable. The soldier walked forward through the flames, the commander stumbling beside him, the alien girl following like a ghost. The commander's voice cracked again. "Do you really think you can hold the council off forever?" The soldier looked up at the sky, watching another Terran ship descend through the smoke like a blade through silk. "We don't need forever," he said. "We just need enough time for them to remember what we are." A low thunder rolled through the ground as the last orbital defense guns fell silent, their towers reduced to molten metal under concentrated Terran fire. The city had fallen, not in weeks or days, but in under an hour. And now the whole galaxy would be watching. They had paraded a human in a death pit to humiliate Earth. Instead, they had handed Earth the perfect stage. The soldier finally turned back to the alien commander, who now stood pale and shaking, stripped of his pride. "You unleashed your pet to kill me," the soldier said quietly. "But you forgot. Humans are not prey." He took one step closer, lowering his voice to a whisper that seemed to crawl under the alien's skin. "We're the storm you should have feared." The commander tried to step back, but there was nowhere to run. The city that had been his fortress was now surrounded by black steel and Terran banners. Dropships landed like falling stars. Drones painted the skyline with silent precision. Humanity wasn't negotiating anymore. They were showing the galaxy why no one should ever try to make them kneel. Far above, on every council channel, images of the arena, the beast, and the city in flames were already spreading. Billions of eyes across alien worlds watched in silence as humanity made its statement. Not through diplomacy, not through pleas, but through fire and control. And somewhere in that endless dark, the Galactic Council began to realize they had made a mistake. A fatal one. They had tried to break a human. Instead, they woke the pack. The soldier stood in the center of the plaza as the fires crackled and the dropships roared above. The alien girl watched him, her pulse loud in her ears, as something inside her shifted completely. The commander had promised terror, but the only thing terrifying here tonight was the quiet man who never once raised his voice. He looked at the sky, calm and unshaken, and in that silence, the galaxy felt the weight of a new storm rising. The city burned beneath a silent sky, its spires glowing like dying embers under the cold light of Terran warships hanging above. It wasn't loud anymore. No more roaring crowds. No more commanders barking orders. Just the low hum of human engines, the steady rhythm of boots on metal streets, and the occasional thud of a drone detonating another defense point. The alien commander was dragged through the ruined plaza, not by chains but by his own stumbling feet, stripped of the arrogance he had worn like armor hours earlier. His robe, once clean and shimmering, was torn and blackened from smoke. He looked up at the sky with wide, trembling eyes as one of the massive Terran carriers broke through the clouds, its silhouette stretching across the city like the shadow of an executioner's blade. This is madness," he whispered, voice cracking. "You're provoking the entire Galactic Council." The human soldier walked beside him, calm and quiet, as if none of this chaos touched him at all. His boots crunched over broken glass and ash. His rifle hung loosely at his side. He didn't need to aim it. The battle was already over. "No," he said softly, not looking at the commander. "We're reminding them what happens when they provoke us." Ahead, the main square that had once been a gleaming symbol of Dominion power was now a landing zone. Dropships touched down in neat rows, engines still hot. Terran Marines in matte black armor fanned out with surgical precision, forming perimeter lines, scanning rooftops, checking every corridor like clockwork. There was no wildness in their movements. It was clean, cold, efficient. This wasn't a victory. They were making an example. Above the square, giant screens that had once broadcast arena executions now flickered under Terran control, their crimson propaganda replaced by the simple, sharp image of a single black flag, the Terran emblem. No words. No speeches. Just a reminder. Across the galaxy, millions of alien systems watched the broadcast live. The Dominion had paraded a human for entertainment. Now humanity was parading their ruin. The alien girl walked several steps behind, her hands clutching the cloak tighter around her. She wasn't shaking anymore. She was numb. Her entire world, the arena, the commander, the scarf beast she once believed unstoppable, had crumbled in a single night. She had grown up believing that humans were the lesser species, tolerated under the Council's mercy. And yet, everything she saw now told her the truth her people had hidden. Humanity was never beneath them. Humanity had just been waiting. The commander fell to his knees in the center of the square, overwhelmed by the sight. Hundreds of human soldiers lined the edges of the plaza. Drones hovered like silent predators in the air, and somewhere overhead, the deep vibration of a Leviathan-class warship rolled through the sky like the growl of a god. The commander's hands shook as he whispered, "The Council will send their fleets. They will crush you. They will bury your homeworld under fire." The soldier finally turned to him, his expression unreadable, his voice low and controlled. "They'll try," he said, "and when they do, they'll find out that we've already prepared for that." The commander laughed weakly, a desperate sound that cracked in his throat. "You can't fight the galaxy," he spat. "You're just one world. We're thousands." The soldier crouched down in front of him, close enough that the commander could see the faint scars running along the human's jaw. "And yet," the soldier said slowly, "your beast is dead, your soldiers are gone, your fortress is burning, and you're on your knees. Numbers don't mean anything if they don't know how to fight something that doesn't break." The alien girl's breathing hitched as she watched the commander's eyes flicker, not with defiance, but with the cold realization that this man wasn't bluffing. He wasn't boasting. He was simply telling him how the story would end. And somewhere deep inside, the commander finally understood why the Council feared humans even as they mocked them. Fear isn't loud. It's quiet. It walks like this man. The rumble of a larger ship broke through the air again. A black shadow descended over the square as the Terran flagship lowered its main ramp. A wall of Terran soldiers stood at the top like statues carved from war itself. In the middle of them walked the Admiral, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair, her uniform dark as the void outside. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough to make the air heavier. The soldiers around her moved like parts of a single machine. This was the woman the Council called the Iron Star. She had fought at the siege of Haldan's Ring. She had turned 3 Council fleets into drifting wreckage. And now, she was here. The commander's knees buckled further when he saw her. He knew the name. Everyone in the Dominion did. The Admiral's boots echoed against the broken plaza as she stopped a few steps from the commander. Her voice was steady, almost gentle, but it cut sharper than any blade. "You thought the galaxy forgot what humans are," she said. "You thought we'd kneel because you had beasts and chains. You were wrong." The commander spat blood, trying to muster whatever pride he had left. "You can't scare everyone," he whispered. The Admiral tilted her head slightly, her expression calm. "We don't need to scare everyone," she said. "We just need to make one example. You're it." Her words hit him harder than a rifle butt. She turned away as her soldiers moved forward, placing restraints on his wrists. Not the polished cuffs of Dominion law, but the cold, simple kind Terrans used on war criminals. The alien girl stood frozen as the soldier walked past her, following the Admiral toward the flagship ramp. For a moment, she thought he would ignore her again. But as he passed, his eyes flicked toward her, just a brief glance, but enough to pin her in place. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Something in that look told her a truth she'd never heard spoken out loud. This wasn't a war to conquer. This was a war to never be chained again. Inside the Terran command net, transmissions spread like wildfire. Fleet positions locked into formation. Data streams showed Dominion networks collapsing across the continent. Human ships cut through their defenses like they were made of paper. There was no mercy, no negotiation. Humanity had been humiliated in front of the galaxy. Now they were writing their response in fire. As the commander was dragged toward the flagship, He screamed at the soldier, his voice breaking with something between fury and desperation. "The council will come for you. They will unite against you." The soldier paused at the bottom of the ramp, turning slowly to face him one last time. "Good," he said simply. "Then we won't have to hunt them. They'll come to us." The alien girl felt her chest tighten at those words. They weren't arrogance. They were a promise. Above them, the Terran fleet shifted into a new formation, sleek and black like a blade drawn against the galaxy itself. The Dominion world that had once been a symbol of alien dominance now lay burning, its towers broken, its leaders on their knees, its skies filled with Terran steel. And somewhere in the stars, the Council was watching. Every delegate, every fleet commander, every race that once laughed at humanity. They saw the black flag rise over the Dominion's capital. They saw the man who killed their monster. And they understood something they had spent centuries trying to deny. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not tame. Humanity was the storm that waited patiently in the dark, and now, the storm was awake. The Dominion capital lay smothered beneath the shadow of Terran warships, its once proud skyline nothing more than a jagged silhouette of broken towers and smoking glass. The night sky burned with the dull red glow of fires that refused to die, and the streets below pulsed with the mechanical precision of Terran boots and drones securing every block. What had begun as a spectacle to humiliate a lone human had turned into a quiet, calculated conquest that the galaxy was now watching in real time. In the central plaza, where alien rulers once held parades to show their power, a massive Terran command hub now stood, erected in under 2 hours. Holographic shields hummed faintly around its perimeter. Dropships moved in perfect, seamless rhythm. This wasn't chaos. This was orchestration, the kind of cold, flawless coordination that comes from a species that learned long ago to fight with its back to the wall and never break. The alien commander was dragged to the center of that plaza, bound and shaking, surrounded by soldiers who didn't speak, didn't posture, didn't celebrate. Their silence was louder than any war cry, heavier than the cannons mounted on the Leviathan-class warship that hovered above the city like a black sun. He stumbled as his knees hit the cracked stone, the Terran emblem flickering above him on every screen that used to show his own face. For years, he had thought humans were a tool to be mocked, used, or broken, creatures good enough to bleed but not good enough to stand. But this silence, this terrifying, controlled silence, wasn't the sound of animals. It was the sound of a predator that knew exactly what it was doing. The soldier who had killed the scarf walked into the square slowly, each step deliberate, boots leaving faint prints in the soot and blood. He wasn't armored like the others. He didn't need to be. His presence alone made the guards part without a word. He stopped in front of the commander, the smoke and light from burning towers flickering against the scars on his face. "Hours ago," he said softly, "you unleashed your beast and called me prey. Now look around. Whose world is bleeding?" His voice wasn't a shout. It didn't have to be. It rolled through the air like steel dragged across stone. The commander coughed, spitting black ash onto the ground. "You think this means anything?" he rasped. "The Galactic Council will answer. They'll send fleets bigger than your entire world. They'll wipe you out like insects." The soldier's head tilted slightly, not with amusement but with that same unsettling calm. "They've been trying to wipe us out since the day we climbed out of the mud," he said. "And every time they tried, we learned. We built. We waited. And now we're not the ones trembling." Behind them, the Terran admiral walked out from the command tent, her coat snapping in the smoke-filled wind. She was flanked by 2 officers carrying data slates, their expressions as sharp as their steps. The alien commander stiffened when he saw her. Her name had been whispered in council halls for years, the human who turned entire star systems into warnings. The Iron Star. Her boots stopped just short of the prisoner, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, even polite, but it cut like cold iron. "Broadcast is live," she said to her comms officer. "All council channels are receiving. Let them watch." The plaza lights intensified, illuminating the commander's broken figure for the galaxy to see. His people's most powerful city, his fortress, his beast, reduced to ash, silence, and fear. On distant worlds, delegates stared at the feed with tight jaws and widening eyes. They had wanted a spectacle. Humanity had given them one, just not the one they expected. The soldier took a step closer to the kneeling commander. "This is what happens," he said, "when you mistake our patience for weakness." The alien girl was standing at the edge of the plaza, wrapped in the same Terran cloak, watching with wide, conflicted eyes. She had grown up in this city. She had believed it to be untouchable, sacred, unshakable. But as the human fleet hovered over its ruins without firing a single extra shot, she realized something horrifying. This wasn't even humanity at full strength. This was precision, not wrath. They had taken the heart of the Dominion without glassing the surface. That meant they didn't just want revenge. They wanted the galaxy to understand. The commander's voice cracked into a desperate growl. "You can't win against all of us," he said, his hands trembling. "The Council will unite. They'll burn your world to the core." The Admiral stepped forward then, crouching just enough so that her face was level with his. Her expression didn't change. Her tone didn't waver. "They can try," she whispered. "But the thing about burning humans is this: we burn back." The words hit harder than any weapon. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes watched this moment. Some races whispered in fear. Others clenched their jaws in silent calculation. And a few, those who had felt the Council's chains too, watched with something dangerously close to hope. Humanity wasn't kneeling. Humanity was standing up. And when they stood, they didn't just lift themselves. They set fire to the cages others built. The soldier reached down, grabbed the commander by the collar of his ash-streaked robe, and pulled him up to his feet. The alien staggered, blinking against the harsh lights. "This isn't the end," the commander hissed weakly. "It's the beginning." The soldier leaned in close, his breath steady against the alien's ear. "Exactly," he said. "And that should terrify you." The Admiral raised a single hand. A hovering drone captured the final image of the plaza. The Dominion commander, bound and broken, humanity's flag burning behind him against a backdrop of silent warships. The feed was transmitted to every council relay in known space. Within hours, every governor, general, and councillor would see it. There would be debates, threats, and panic. Fleets would be moved. Speeches would be made. But nothing would change the fact that the galaxy's balance had just shifted. The alien girl's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched the Terran fleet realign in the sky. She didn't know what side she belonged to anymore. She only knew one thing. Everything she had believed about humans had been a lie. And as the soldier passed by her on his way to the flagship, their eyes met for the briefest moment. In his gaze, she didn't see cruelty or conquest. She saw something far more dangerous: conviction. Far above, the Leviathan-class flagship turned, its engines glowing like a second sun. Smaller ships followed its lead, falling into formation with perfect precision. The invasion was over, but the message was still echoing through the stars. In council space, panic was spreading. Delegates argued, fleets scrambled, and for the first time in centuries, they were speaking the same word in fear: humanity. As the soldier stepped onto the flagship ramp, the city below flickered with the dying light of its arrogance. The war hadn't started yet, not truly, but this was the moment it began to breathe. A single fight had become a fracture, and through that fracture, the storm was rising. The galaxy had spent centuries calling humans dangerous. They had no idea how right they were. The stars above the ruined Dominion capital burned cold and sharp, framed against the black steel underbellies of Terran warships. The air still reeked of smoke and scorched alloy, the distant sound of drones sweeping through the shattered streets like the mechanical breath of some vast predator. But inside the Terran flagship, the atmosphere was nothing like the chaos below. It was calm, controlled, a storm that knew exactly where it would strike next. The alien commander sat shackled to a reinforced chair in the center of a circular chamber, its walls pulsing faintly with blue light, his once flawless robes stained with ash and blood. His claws scratched nervously against the armrest, his breath shallow. For the first time in his life, he was no longer the predator. He was the lesson. The soldier entered the chamber without an escort, boots silent against the metal floor. He didn't carry a weapon now. He didn't need to. His presence was enough to make the commander straighten, like some instinct buried deep inside knew that the man in front of him wasn't prey, wasn't weak, wasn't to be underestimated again. "You've made a mistake," the commander rasped, trying to salvage some splinter of control. "You've won nothing. All you've done is bring the Council's wrath on your kind. Every fleet, every army, every world will come for you. They will crush your species under their boots." The soldier leaned against the wall with the ease of someone who had heard that threat 100 times before. His voice was calm, almost quiet. "Then why are you the one in chains?" That question hit harder than a weapon. The commander opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The human stepped closer, just enough for the dim light to catch the scars across his face. Scars not from a single war, but from a lifetime of surviving things worse than what this alien could imagine. "You talk about fleets," the soldier said softly, "about wrath, about power. But power isn't how many ships you have. Power is what happens when those ships look up and see what's coming for them." Above them, the holographic display flickered to life, showing a live feed of the Terran fleet hanging like black knives above the Dominion world. The Leviathan-class warship at the center dwarfed anything the Dominion military had ever built. Around it, smaller ships formed rings of perfect geometry, drones flowing between them like a living tide. On every council channel across the galaxy, this image was already burning into history. Humanity hadn't simply attacked. They had taken the Dominion's pride and hung it in the stars for everyone to see. The Admiral entered the chamber, her hands clasped neatly behind her back, the sharp lines of her uniform catching the light. She didn't look at the commander as she passed him. She looked at the map projected above them, where countless council territories were beginning to pulse with movement. Fleets mobilizing, borders locking down, fear spreading like a slow fever. "They are panicking," she said, her voice flat, precise. "Half the council wants to form a coalition. The other half wants to talk. Either way, they're finally doing something they haven't done in centuries. They're taking us seriously." The commander bared his teeth in something between a sneer and a desperate smile. "You think that's good news?" he spat. "You think fear will save you? Fear will unite them. They'll bring every warship in the galaxy against your world. And when they do, Earth will burn." The Admiral finally turned toward him then, her expression unreadable, her gaze colder than the void outside. "We've heard that before," she said quietly. "Every species that ever tried to break us thought their numbers made them strong. They thought we'd kneel." She leaned closer, her eyes locking onto his. "But we don't kneel. We adapt. We build. And then we break the ones who thought they could break us." The commander's breath caught in his throat. He had seen that kind of certainty before, not in soldiers, not in politicians, but in predators who had already decided which part of the world belonged to them. "You're insane," he whispered. "You're going to burn everything." The soldier finally pushed away from the wall, his boots echoing softly as he approached the chair. "No," he said. "You were the ones who thought it was a game when you threw us into the arena. When you unleashed your pet to devour a man in front of the galaxy. You wanted to show your power. Now the galaxy's looking at ours." The holographic map shifted again. Fleet icons spread outward from Earth like veins of light, each representing a battle group that had been hidden beneath the surface for years. Council intelligence had always underestimated human capacity. They saw the Terran defense fleet that sat in orbit, not the hundreds of shadow fleets buried deep in the dark corners of space, waiting for the right moment to rise. That moment had arrived. "You think we weren't preparing?" the soldier asked quietly, circling the commander like a hunter. "We've been preparing since the first time one of you called us lesser." The alien girl stood outside the chamber's glass wall, watching the conversation unfold with her hands pressed against the cold surface. She was no longer wrapped in chains, no longer hiding. She couldn't hear every word, but she didn't need to. She could see it in the commander's eyes, the fear that was growing, spreading like cracks in glass. She had lived her entire life believing that humans were dangerous only when cornered. But now she understood the truth. They were most dangerous when calm. The commander hissed through clenched teeth. They'll unite against you. Every species. Every fleet. Do you know what that looks like? The admiral walked slowly around the projection, her boots whispering against the floor. Yes, she said. It looks like a war. And war is something we understand better than any of you. She tapped the projection once. Dozens of red points appeared along the council's supply chains, key infrastructure nodes, hidden choke points. You built an empire on the assumption that we'd always stay small, she said. You built your fleets thinking we'd never have enough. But what happens when the ones you thought were prey start hunting? The commander tried to hold his composure, but his voice cracked on the next word. You'll die. The soldier leaned in closer until the alien could see the burn scars across his jaw, the cold, steady flame behind his eyes. Then we'll die standing, he said. But we won't be the only ones. The admiral straightened, hands behind her back once again. Release the broadcast, she ordered. The comms officer in the corner touched the panel, and across the galaxy, the Terran signal flared to life. Every council world, every station, every corner of space where the humans had been dismissed as reckless upstarts now saw the Dominion commander on his knees. The Terran fleet above his burning world, and the calm faces of people who weren't asking for permission anymore. The soldier turned toward the camera, his voice measured, deliberate, and quiet enough to cut through the noise like a knife. You tried to make an example of us, he said. You called us weak. You chained us, mocked us, threw us into your cages, and sent your pets to devour us. You wanted to remind the galaxy who you thought held the leash. Consider this your reminder. Humanity does not kneel. Not to beasts. Not to empires. Not to you. The transmission cut, leaving only silence on the command deck. The commander slumped against his restraints, his hands trembling. He understood now. This wasn't a momentary flare of rebellion. This was a declaration. Outside, the Terran fleet began to realign, engines humming in perfect unison, preparing to leave the Dominion world behind. They didn't need to occupy it. They didn't need to hold it. They had already carved their message deep into the galaxy's spine. The alien girl watched through the viewport as the Leviathan-class warship turned, its glowing engines igniting the black sky. She felt something she couldn't name, a mix of fear and awe. Far across the galaxy, council fleets scrambled to respond, but in their halls, whispers were already spreading. Some wanted war. Others wanted to negotiate. And a few, the ones who had felt the council's chains before, watched with quiet, dangerous hope. Humanity had drawn its line in fire. The soldier stood at the viewport, his reflection framed against the endless dark. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He only whispered under his breath, "Let them come." And in that moment, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. The Terran fleet drifted through the silent black like a blade gliding through water, a wall of steel and shadow that didn't announce itself with horns or fanfare, but with the kind of silence that comes from absolute certainty. The Dominion world behind them was no longer a fortress, no longer a symbol of power. It was just another scar in the galaxy's memory. The city burned quietly in the night, the black Terran flag still projected on its crumbling towers, and somewhere on every council world, delegates were staring at the broadcast with cold, rising fear. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. Humanity had declared itself. Inside the flagship, the atmosphere was heavy but controlled. No one celebrated. There were no shouts of victory. Terrans didn't cheer when they won. They planned for the next fight. The admiral stood on the command bridge, her hands clasped behind her back, eyes locked on the vast holographic map hovering over the deck. It wasn't just the Dominion's territory anymore. Red points were spreading across dozens of sectors, council staging zones, fleet routes, supply chains. The room was filled with quiet efficiency, officers exchanging data packets, pilots reporting formation alignment, analysts already predicting council responses. Everything was moving like a well-oiled machine that had been waiting for this moment. The soldier stood at the far side of the bridge, his scarred face half lit by the soft blue light of the star map. He'd been silent since they left the surface, the image of the burning arena still carved into the back of his mind. Not because of guilt, but because that was the spark. The alien commander thought the arena would break a human. Instead, it broke the illusion that humanity could be controlled. He could already feel the weight of what was coming. This wasn't over. This was the beginning. Council fleets are already mobilizing, a comms officer reported, his voice steady. 3 sectors have declared emergency summits. 4 fleets have broken from defensive positions and are moving to the border lines. No sign of a coordinated strike yet, but it's coming. The admiral didn't even blink. Let them, she said quietly. They've been waiting centuries to remind us of our place. Now it's time we remind them of theirs. A ripple of grim amusement moved through the bridge crew, not because they underestimated the council, but because they'd been preparing for this longer than the council realized. Every Terran officer standing on that bridge knew the story of their species. Humanity was never invited to the council as equals. They were tolerated, watched, controlled, threatened with extermination when they didn't play by the rules. For years, Earth kept its head low, smiling when they needed to, negotiating when they had to. But under that smile, in the dark corners of space, they had built something the council thought was impossible. A hidden network of fortresses, fleets, and weapons forged by a people who had never once forgotten how to fight. The soldier's comm unit buzzed softly. A secure transmission. He stepped aside into a shadowed alcove and accepted it. The face that appeared on the screen wasn't a military commander. It was an elder, one of the original architects of the Terran Shadow Network. His voice was low, slow, and carved with years of hard decisions. "They are calling for war," the old man said simply. "The council will march, just like we always knew they would. It's time." The soldier nodded slowly, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "Then we stop waiting," he replied. "We move first." When he returned to the bridge, the admiral was already issuing quiet commands. "Signal the shadow fleets. All stations go dark. No broadcasts. No warnings. I want them in position before the council even realizes how far we've dug." Her voice carried no anger, only precision. The comm officer responded with a single word, "Aye." And just like that, across hundreds of hidden locations, Terran ships that had been sleeping in the void for decades began to wake. The alien girl stood on the lower observation deck, staring through the massive window that framed the stars. She wasn't in chains anymore. She wasn't a trophy or a pet. She was just a girl staring at a fleet that terrified the entire galaxy. She could still hear the echoes of the arena in her mind, the sound of the scarf roaring, the laughter of her people when they thought the human would be devoured. Now the laughter was gone, replaced by the cold silence of fear. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered to no one, "They don't know what's coming." The soldier joined her, standing at the edge of the deck. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, looking at the same stars. To him, they weren't beautiful. They were the battlefield. "You're not going back, are you?" she finally asked softly. His eyes stayed fixed on the void. "There's no going back after this," he said. "The moment your commander unleashed that beast, they made this war inevitable. They gave us the excuse to stop pretending." She turned to look at him, really seeing him now, not as the prisoner she'd once watched in a pit, but as the weapon her people had accidentally awakened. "You're going to fight all of them," she whispered. "The whole galaxy." His voice was steady, like iron. "No. We're going to win against all of them." On the bridge above, the Admiral's map flared red as reports came in from listening posts scattered across the galaxy. The Council was moving fast, faster than expected. Massive joint fleets were being assembled at key points, their movements hidden behind coded transmissions. But Terran intelligence had already cracked their encryption. Every step the Council took was already on the board. "They're afraid," the Admiral said quietly, "and fear makes them predictable." The alien commander, locked deep in the ship's brig, screamed threats into the darkness of his cell. He promised fleets. He promised the destruction of Earth. But no one answered him. No one even listened. His words were already too late. He didn't realize it yet, But he hadn't just lost a battle. He had set fire to the Council's illusion of power. The soldier looked out the viewport one last time before the jump. The black hulls of hundreds of Terran ships surrounded them, each one a silent reminder that humanity didn't wait for permission. They took the fight to anyone who dared to put a chain around their neck. The alien girl followed his gaze, and for the first time, she understood why the galaxy feared humans. It wasn't their weapons. It wasn't their numbers. It was their will. Jump sequence in 10, a voice announced from the bridge. The hum of the engines deepened, vibrating through the decks. Lights dimmed as the fleet aligned into its attack formation, the Leviathan-class warship at its center like the heart of a beast about to wake. The soldier straightened his shoulders, his jaw set, the familiar calm settling over him. War wasn't coming to humanity. Humanity was going to war. The Admiral gave the final order with quiet precision. Initiate Shadow Protocol. Let the galaxy see what they tried to chain. And with that, the stars twisted, the void folded, and the Terran fleet vanished into the darkness between worlds. Across the galaxy, Council fleets scrambled, their admirals shouting orders, their delegates issuing speeches, their civilians whispering in fear. But the truth was simple. The moment that Beast hit the sand in that arena, the war had already begun. And as the fleet streaked through the void, the soldier closed his eyes for a brief, silent second and whispered the words every human warrior knew by heart. They thought we were prey. They're about to learn what hunts in the dark. And in the black between stars, humanity's war truly began.